Sometimes a person's life doesn't collapse because of an earthquake or tragic news, but because of a single quiet moment when you see something that should never have been there. That day, I only wanted to bring warm beef stew to my daughter. Instead, I found something that pierced deeper than any blade. Before the story begins, please write in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe so the Stories with Meaning channel can continue to grow and bring you more powerful stories. That afternoon, the sky over Riverside, California began to change colors. Golden light brushed across rooftops, signaling that sunset and the breaking of the fast was near. The final week of Ramadan always carried a special atmosphere. The streets were crowded, yet people's hearts felt calmer as dusk approached. My name is Adrian Cole. I had just finished inspecting a bridge pouring project in West Los Angeles. I was 62 years old, but my energy still matched that of a man in his 40s. Years of working directly in the field, steel, concrete, and inspections with my own eyes had kept me that way. "Mr. Cole, are you coming back to the site tomorrow?" Supri asked. He was my loyal site foreman. "God willing," I replied, patting his shoulder. "Everything has to be wrapped up before the holiday." The car rolled slowly away from the project site. The air conditioning cooled the sweat on my forehead. Then an idea struck me. My daughter, Nadia, we called her Nad, she lived not far from there, in an upscale gated community called Silver Lake Heights. There was still time before sunset. Why not stop by and surprise her? On the back seat sat a container of beef stew my wife had cooked that morning, still warm. Marina, my wife of nearly 27 years, had said she wouldn't join the family for breaking the fast because she had a mild headache. I didn't argue. A long marriage teaches you not to fight over small things. "I'll bring this to Nad and her husband," I murmured, imagining my son-in-law's polite smile. My relationship with Lucas Hart had always been formal but cordial. He was a young corporate lawyer with a solid reputation among the city's business elite. When Nadia introduced him 5 years ago, I noticed ambition in his eyes. But ambition, I thought, was a good thing in young men. The gates of Silver Lake Heights stood tall with sleek modern design. The security guard recognized me and saluted. I drove slowly into Block D, where Nadia and Lucas lived. That was when I saw it. A silver Exus RX 300, Marina's car, parked neatly in front of their house. My steps suddenly felt heavy, like boots filled with wet cement. That car should have been in our garage back home in Riverside. Marina had said she was resting, but her car was here. I turned off the engine. The AC hummed softly. For almost 2 minutes, I sat there, staring. Possibilities raced through my mind. Maybe Marina wanted to surprise Nadia too. Maybe she came to see our grandson. We had one grandson, Leo, Nadia's 3-year-old son. But why didn't she tell me? And why lie about being sick? An uneasy feeling crept into my chest, like an itch you can't reach, irritating and relentless. "There must be a simple explanation," I whispered, trying to steady my breathing. I stepped out of the car, carrying the food container. Instead of going to the front door, I walked around the left side of the house, toward the garden. I don't know why I chose that path. Instinct, perhaps, or fate. A window to Lucas's home office was slightly open, likely left that way to let in the cool evening air. Then I heard it. A woman's laugh, light, familiar, and devastating. Marina's voice. "All the documents are signed. Half the assets will be mine outright. After that, we can live comfortably without any burden." Her tone was one I had never heard in 27 years of marriage. Lucas replied calmly, coldly, "We'll file for divorce right after Eid. We'll use the standard reasons, irreconcilable differences, psychological pressure, easy to validate." My heart stopped. They talked about the value of my company, Cole Construction Group, which had just secured a new contract worth $1.2 million. They mentioned the vacation house in Aspen, the main residence in Riverside, and the office apartment in Denver. The offshore accounts don't appear in the tax filings, Lucas said proudly, but we copied the backup files when Marina pretended to need last month's tax report. My hands trembled. I leaned against the wall. The food container nearly slipped from my grip. Acting on pure survival instinct, I pulled out my phone and began recording. Marina spoke again, her voice icy. For the past 2 years, I smiled every time he talked about his projects, pretended to care about delayed wages and workers. Inside, I felt disgusted. Lucas laughed softly. And he thought you were loyal. Pathetic. I don't know how long I stood there, recording every word that shattered the world I believed in. As I tried to step back quietly, my keychain slipped from my hand and hit the stone path. Clink. Soft, but loud enough in the evening stillness. From inside, Lucas's voice sharpened. Did you hear that? Marina answered cautiously. Sounded like metal. You left the window open. I pressed myself against the wall, barely breathing, my heart pounding. Footsteps approached the window. A chair scraped quickly across the floor. Lucas spoke tensely. If that was a neighbor, we're fine. But if it was him, my life will never be the same after today. You can share a house with someone for decades, sleep in the same bed, eat from the same plates, and still never know what lives inside their heart. What is more terrifying than that? Somehow, I managed to slip away unseen. Cold sweat swept my back as I returned to my car and drove home, my mind completely numb. The words of Marina and Lucas replayed in my head like a broken tape. When I arrived, our grand riverside house looked empty. A house built with hope now felt like a museum, full of memories, but lifeless. Darkness had fallen, yet I stayed in the car for almost 10 minutes, staring at the guava tree Marina and I had planted together early in our marriage. 27 years. For what? I whispered. My mind drifted back to 1995. I met Marina at a client appreciation event in Fresno. She was a cheerful young secretary, sharp and perceptive. I was a widower, 38 years old, rebuilding my life after a failed project nearly destroyed me. "Sir, do you need help with those files?" she asked, smiling. Her eyes looked sincere. At least, that's what I believed then. 6 months later, we married, just after Eid in 1996. It wasn't extravagant, but it was full of hope. I still remember her squeezing my hand during our vows. "We'll be happy," she whispered. "I'll do my best," I replied with absolute certainty. Nadia was born 2 years later. Marina appeared to be the perfect mother, documenting every milestone, from childhood ceremonies to graduation. She gave Nadia constant attention. I never doubted her devotion. Now, standing alone in the living room, that certainty was gone. Our wedding photo still hung on the wall. I looked happy. Marina smiled sweetly. The same smile I had seen every morning for 27 years. A fake smile. I sat down heavily, trying to remember when everything had changed. In 2021, Cole Construction Group secured its biggest project yet, the Harbor Point Mall development, valued at $1.2 million. Instead of congratulations, Marina talked about moving to a more prestigious neighborhood. "We need a better environment," she said. "All your business peers live like that." I agreed. Wasn't it natural for a wife to want a better life? Then she began asking for copies of tax reports, asset lists, bank details, all under the excuse of family planning. "I need to know everything for our future," she said softly. Now I saw all the signs I had ignored. Mistaken transfers to unfamiliar accounts, frequent legal meetings with Lucas, even a suggestion to put the Riverside house in her name.
How foolish I was, I whispered. I thought it was care. It was preparation for my destruction.
That night, I couldn't sleep. The air conditioner hummed softly in the bedroom, but my mind was far louder. I began assembling the puzzle pieces in my head. Early the next morning, while Marina was still asleep, I quietly opened her laptop. It wasn't locked. She had always trusted that I would never pry. Foolishly, yet fortunately, I found emails between her and Lucas Hart. Nothing overtly explicit, but there were repeated references to a big plan and their private project. Several attachments were password protected, files I couldn't open. From that moment on, I started gathering more evidence. I reviewed our prenuptial agreement from 1996. It was still valid, fully legal, properly notarized with witnesses. Then I discovered a joint bank account I had never approved. The names listed were Marina Cole and Lucas Hart. For an entire week, I secretly reviewed Marina's financial records for the past 6 months. There were regular transfers to Lucas's account, labeled Family Emergency Savings. The total exceeded $46,000. There were also expenses for luxury spas, social clubs, boutique shopping, and private lunches at an exclusive country club in Beverly Hills. The amounts were staggering for the wife of a contractor who claimed to live modestly. "You've been zoning out a lot lately," Marina said one evening as we had dinner together. Her voice sounded caring, but her eyes never met mine. "Just thinking about work," I replied briefly, forcing myself to sound normal. "Don't stress too much," she said, pouring water into my glass. "You're not young anymore." That last sentence echoed in my mind. "You're not young anymore." Was that her subtle way of reminding me my time was nearly up? That at 62, I was just waiting to be replaced? That night, I found something even more shocking. On Marina's desk lay a letter from a notary firm. It wasn't hidden. Perhaps she was too confident I would never look. The letter was a request for legal consultation regarding post-divorce asset division. Attached was a list of properties whose ownership documents had already been legally duplicated, with Lucas Hart listed as the potential beneficiary. The letter was dated 3 weeks ago, before Ramadan even began. My hands trembled as I read it. So they had been planning this for 3 weeks. For 3 weeks I had slept with someone who was preparing my destruction. "Adrian, I'm home." Marina's voice suddenly came from the front door. I quickly returned the letter to its place and pretended to read the newspaper in the living room. "Oh, your social gathering finished early?" I asked casually. "Yes, but I'm exhausted," Marina replied as she removed her shawl. "I'm going to lie down." "Go ahead," I said shortly. She looked at me for a moment, perhaps sensing something off in my tone, but asked nothing more and walked toward the bedroom. I stood there for a long time, staring at her retreating figure. Behind that carved wooden door, one I had installed with my own hands, was someone who had already declared war. And tomorrow, I would prepare the battlefield. That night, I slept on the office sofa. Marina sent a message. "Where are you sleeping? Why aren't you in the bedroom?" I replied simply, "Still working. Go to sleep." "Okay, don't stay up too late." Smiley face. I stared at that smiling emoji for a long time. How effortlessly she lied. How perfectly she had played her role for the past 2 years, or maybe even longer. When the house finally fell silent, I opened my laptop and began planning. When someone tries to steal your money, you might forgive them. But when they try to steal your life and make you the villain in your own story, that is a war you cannot avoid. The wall clock showed 2 a.m. when I finished sending several critical emails to people I trusted. The first moves of my counterattack. As I closed the laptop, my eyes fell on a framed family photo on my desk.
Marina, Nadia, and me, smiling in front of the Taj Mahal during a vacation 5 years ago. "I'm sorry, Nod," I whispered to the photo. "Your father has to do this." I didn't know how I would explain everything to her someday. How could I tell my daughter that her mother and her husband had conspired to destroy her own father? I lay on the sofa, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow the battle would begin, but tonight I allowed myself to feel the pain in full. Betrayal from the people I trusted most. Morning came before dawn. I had slept only a few hours, yet my mind felt sharper than ever. After washing up, I sat alone in the small prayer room in the corner of the house, the place where I often reflected in silence. I prayed with full concentration. In my final prostration, I asked for guidance and strength. When I finished, a strange calm settled over me. Not peace, but certainty. "Enough being the patient husband," I whispered to myself. All these years, I had yielded for the sake of harmony, believing silence was a form of love. But every patience has its limit. I opened my work laptop and reviewed my entire financial structure: personal accounts, joint accounts, corporate assets, long-term investments, and an emergency fund stored in an overseas account. An account Marina didn't even know existed. By morning, I was dressed neatly in a dark blue shirt and slacks. Marina was still asleep, or pretending to be, when I left the bedroom. I didn't wake her. I didn't leave a note. Why say goodbye to someone planning your ruin? My car headed towards Continental Bank, Riverside branch. Thomas Reed, the bank's regional director, was an old golf friend. We had once served on a community board together, and he respected my integrity. "Adrian, this is early for you," he said warmly as I entered his office. "There's something important we need to discuss," I replied seriously. He immediately understood this wasn't a casual visit and led me into a private meeting room. I spread documents across the table: joint account records, signature authorizations, and 8 months of transaction reports. "I need your help," I said directly. "Of course, what do you need?" "I want all joint accounts temporarily frozen, all automatic debits stopped, and all digital access switched to two-factor verification." He raised his eyebrows. "That's quite drastic. May I ask why?" I showed him the flagged transactions. He studied them carefully, his expression turning grave. "There are 13 transfers to an account under Lucas Hart. In the last 7 months alone, about $46,000. And these," I added, pointing to other entries: luxury purchases, spa memberships, around $2,500 per item, monthly spa fees nearly $800, elite dining, all without my knowledge. "Understood. We'll process this immediately." He hesitated briefly. "This may raise questions from your wife." "I'll handle that," I said calmly. "And please notify me of any suspicious access attempts." As I left the bank, my phone rang. A number I hadn't seen in years. Michael Grant. Michael was an old associate from my mining project days. Now he worked as an independent investigator. I had emailed him the night before, requesting urgent help. "Michael," I answered as I got into the car. "Adrian, long time. Your email sounded serious." "It is," I said. "I need your help." "Tell me." I explained the situation concisely. He listened without interruption, then asked technical questions: habits, locations, schedules. "I need you to follow them," I said. "Document suspicious meetings. If possible, place a recording device." "In Marina's work bag?" he guessed. "She carries it everywhere. That's doable." "You know this won't be cheap," he added. "Money isn't the issue," I replied. "I need concrete proof." "I'll start today." After the call, I stopped at a small cafe on the outskirts of town, a modest place far from Marina's social circle. Sipping black coffee, I opened my laptop and began listing the assets that needed immediate protection. Cole Construction Group was the business I built from nothing, from a near-bankrupt contractor to a respected middle-level firm in Southern California. I would not let anyone, not even my own wife, take it from me through deception.
2 days later, Michael Grant sent his preliminary report through an encrypted email. The contents were shocking. Lucas Hart was in the middle of a personal financial crisis. His law office rent in East Los Angeles was 4 months overdue. He also had personal debts to independent contractors, electrical and plumbing, totaling more than $27,000. More disturbing still, there were rumors circulating among his fellow attorneys that Lucas frequently rotated client funds to cover his own operational expenses. Michael had also managed to infiltrate a restaurant where Lucas often met female clients. One of them was a wealthy widow, an heir to a textile business from Charleston, South Carolina. "Small-time bastard," I muttered as I read the report. Lucas wasn't just planning to defraud me, he was also cheating on my daughter. My blood boiled, but I knew better than to act recklessly. I needed more proof before confronting them. Meanwhile, Marina began to show signs of anxiety. Her credit card was declined while shopping, and she could no longer access several online accounts. "There's something wrong with our bank, Adrian?" she asked one evening, trying to sound casual. No idea. Why?" I replied, still reading the newspaper. "My card was declined earlier and I couldn't log into our online banking." "Strange," I shrugged. "Maybe system maintenance. I'll check tomorrow." "Yes, please," she said, staring at me as if trying to read my expression. But 27 years of marriage had made me a skilled actor as well. 5 days later, while I was in a meeting with a client at my office, Michael sent a short message. "Listen to this." He attached an audio file. My heart raced. I excused myself and stepped into a private room. The recording came from a microphone planted inside Marina's work bag. Her voice and Lucas's were crystal clear, speaking inside Lucas's office. "We need to accelerate the plan. I've prepared an emergency divorce filing." "On what grounds?" Marina asked. "Adrian controls all family finances, manipulates you, and applies psychological pressure. We'll demand $1,600 a month in spousal support and exclusive residency rights to the main house." "He'll fight back," Marina said hesitantly. "Of course, but we have evidence," Lucas replied. They spoke about fabricated proof, manipulated screenshots of cold emails, and deliberate sudden fund withdrawals to make it appear as if I ruled the finances with an iron fist. "I'll say I'm afraid of him," Marina said, her tone disturbingly clinical. "Afraid of a husband who's no longer stable, and you'll say I'm the victim." My heart pounded, not only with rage, but disbelief. How could someone who had shared my life for 27 years plan my destruction with such cold precision? Michael added a caption beneath the audio. "They'll strike on Monday. The script is already written." I closed my eyes. Silently, I began writing my own script. That night, I returned home. As usual, Marina welcomed me with a smile and dinner already prepared. Beef stew, my favorite, the same dish I had brought to Nadia's house the day everything fell apart. "Adrian, tomorrow's Monday. We're meeting the notary," Marina said casually as we ate, "about transferring the house title." So that was it, their first move, secure the house before filing for divorce. "I have an important meeting tomorrow," I replied calmly. "Can we do Tuesday instead?" Marina was disappointed. "Well, all right, I'll reschedule with the notary." I nodded and continued eating, while inside my head the plan was already complete. No, Marina. Monday will not be the day you destroy me. Monday will be the day my retaliation begins. When your entire life is about to be destroyed by people you call family, sometimes salvation comes from the very person they assume will stand with them. That morning, I made a difficult decision. I would speak to Nadia. My daughter deserved to know the truth before this storm hit our family. I couldn't bear the thought of her learning about her parents' divorce from a courtroom, instead from her own father. I sent her a short message. "Dad needs to talk. Can you come over without Lucas and Mom?" Her reply came a few minutes later. "Is everything okay?" "I'm fine. I need to tell you something important." "All right, I'll come after dropping Leo at school." I asked my office driver to deliver some documents to a client. I needed privacy for this conversation. Marina had left early. She said she had a social gathering, but Michael's latest update showed she was headed to an exclusive salon near Rodeo Drive, a place she often visited with friends, and sometimes with Lucas. At exactly 9 a.m., Nadia's car pulled into the driveway. At 27, Nadia looked as sharp and energetic as ever. A successful clinical psychologist with her own private practice in Los Angeles. Her eyes, so much like mine, were always quick to read a room. "You look tired, Dad." She kissed my cheeks. "Trouble at work?" "Sit down, Nadia," I said, pointing to the living room sofa. "This isn't about work." She sat. Anxiety flickered across her face. "Are you sick?" "No." I took a deep breath. "This is about your mother and your husband." She stiffened. I could almost see her mind connecting dots she'd long ignored. "They're planning to destroy me," I said quietly. "They're conspiring." "Dad, what do you mean?" she asked, frowning. Instead of answering, I played the recording. 47 minutes of conversation between Marina and Lucas, recorded in Nadia's own home office. When the audio ended, Nadia didn't cry. Her face hardened, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. "I need more evidence," she said calmly, professionally, as if this were a case file, not her family. I nodded and showed her everything. Bank transfer screenshots, the notary letter, Michael's investigative reports, photos of their secret meetings. She studied each document carefully. After nearly 40 minutes of silence, she finally spoke. "I've suspected something for a while," she admitted. "Lucas keeps asking about your business structure. He brings home legal documents unrelated to his work, and he calls female clients late at night too often." My chest tightened. So it was true. He had betrayed my daughter as well. "Mom has also been blaming you more," Nadia continued. "She keeps saying, 'Your father is stingy. He used to be romantic. Now everything is measured in numbers.'" She shook her head. "Last week, at dinner, I tried confronting them gently. I asked Mom if something was wrong between you. I asked Lucas about his intentions regarding family assets." "What did they say?" I asked. Mom answered softly, but with pressure in her voice. "You won't understand until you've been a wife for 27 years. And Lucas said, flatly, "I just want to ensure the family's future. Isn't that a husband's duty?" Nadia rubbed her face in frustration. "I'm not stupid, Dad. I knew something was wrong. I just never imagined it was this bad." She looked straight at me, eyes glossy but unbroken. "I'll help you, but I want to see who they really are without the mask." That was when Nadia proposed a plan I had never imagined. She would pretend to be a naive, supportive wife, encourage Lucas, lure him into revealing more of their plan, verbally, and record everything. "Are you sure, Nadia?" I asked hesitantly. "This could hurt you deeply." "It hurts more to see my father framed as a monster," she replied firmly. and I need to know what kind of man I married." 2 days later, Nadia sent me another recording. She had successfully provoked Lucas into revealing more details while they were alone at home. "Your father is old," Lucas said on the recording. "He won't even understand when we take half of his business." Lucas also admitted he had already prepared the court filing and wanted Nadia to testify that Adrian psychologically abused her mother. What hurt the most, Lucas referred to Nadia as their ultimate legal weapon. "Courts always sympathize with children who defend their mother," he said. "Especially you, a psychologist. Your testimony will seal the narrative." Listening to the recording, I was furious beyond words. But Nadia was calm. She had already made her decision. "I filed for divorce," she told me a few days later, when we met at a quiet cafe far from familiar circles. "I've also contacted the Ethical Psychology Board to clarify that my name is being misused for manipulation." She handed me a flash drive. "All the evidence is here. I've also backed it up in my personal safe."
A quiet sorrow hovered between us, not only because of the betrayal we had endured, but because we both knew life would never be the same after this. "What about Leo?" I finally asked, thinking of my grandson. "He'll be fine," Nadia answered calmly. "I'll make sure of it. He's still too young to understand any of this, and I have more than enough evidence to obtain full custody." That night, according to Nadia's account, she waited for Lucas to come home and confronted him in the living room. Lucas came home late, as usual. Nadia was sitting quietly on the sofa when he walked in. "You're not asleep yet?" Lucas asked, loosening his tie. "I know everything," Nadia said calmly, without any preamble. "And it won't be me who brings you down, but all the lies you wrote yourself." Lucas panicked, his face drained of color, but he still tried to deny it. "What are you talking about? What do you mean?" Nadia didn't scream, she didn't cry. She simply said softly, "You misjudged me, Lucas, but worse, you misjudged my father." She stood up, leaving Lucas frozen in confusion in the living room, and locked herself in the bedroom. All night long, she packed only what mattered, her essentials and Leo's documents. The next morning, when Lucas woke up, all of Nadia's clothes were gone. On his desk lay a single sheet of paper. "I won't play a role in this drama, but I will be its witness." "How did your mother react when you left the house?" I asked, when Nadia and Leo temporarily moved into a friend's apartment. "She tried calling me repeatedly," Nadia replied. "I only sent one short message, that I knew everything, and that she should stop before it's too late." "And she denied it, of course," she continued. "She said I misunderstood, that you had manipulated me." Nadia smiled bitterly. Classic, twisting reality. We fell silent again. The next step was obvious, court, but we had no idea how fast it would all unfold. The following Monday, exactly as Michael Grant had warned, I received an official notice from the Los Angeles Family Court. Marina Cole had filed for divorce. The allegations were severe: emotional neglect, psychological pressure, and full financial control over the household. She demanded exclusive residency rights to the primary residence, $1,600 per month in spousal support, and half of all movable and immovable assets. As expected, the lawsuit had been drafted by Lucas Hart's legal team, with Lucas himself listed as legal advisor for the plaintiff, a blatant conflict of interest. "They actually did it," Nadia said when I told her. Her voice sounded tired, but not surprised. "Yes," I replied quietly, "the show has begun, and we're ready with our counterscript." Nadia squeezed my hand in support. I managed a small smile amid the sorrow. At least one thing gave me strength. My daughter was standing on the side of truth. and that was enough to face the storm ahead. They thought the courtroom was a stage to play victims. They believed the world would side with whoever cried louder and spoke sweeter. They forgot one thing. On the wrong stage, the spotlight doesn't just reveal the actors, it exposes the puppeteers. After receiving the divorce filing, I wasted no time. That same day, I contacted Evelyn Moore, a senior attorney known for her ruthless precision in complex divorce litigation. She wasn't just a lawyer, she was a hunter of truth with the eyes of a hawk. "Do you have solid evidence, Mr. Cole?" she asked, after reviewing the documents I provided, her sharp gaze glinting behind thin-rimmed glasses. "This isn't just a divorce. This is an organized attempt to illegally strip you of your assets." "Our strategy?" I asked directly. "We won't play defense," she replied. "We counterattack with a reconvention claim." Over the next 2 weeks, we prepared a complete case file, a 47-minute audio recording, proof of $46,500 transferred to Lucas's personal account, screenshots of internal communications, a prenuptial agreement from 1996 fully legalized, notarial letters showing attempted falsification of ownership records. We also prepared our witnesses, Thomas Reed from the bank, Jonathan Edwards, the notary, 3 former clients of Lucas who admitted they had been defrauded, and of course, investigator Michael Grant. When the trial day arrived, I felt strangely calm, perhaps because over the last 2 weeks I had already emptied myself of every buried emotion, anger, disappointment, betrayal. What remained was only cold resolve. The hearing was presided over by Judge Eleanor Whitman, a middle-aged woman with a firm face, known for her intolerance of courtroom theatrics. The Los Angeles family court felt unusually cold that morning. Despite the bright California sun outside, Marina arrived wearing a gray dress and a neatly draped shawl. Her face was pale, her eyes swollen, accompanied by Lucas in a black formal suit. They sat across from me and my legal team. Our eyes met briefly. No smiles, no nods, just emptiness. Case number 1234 FC 2025 LA. Divorce proceedings. Court is now open and to the public. Marina, as the plaintiff, was asked to present her claim. She walked forward slowly, wiping away tears. "I lived in fear," she began, her voice trembling. "My husband is cold. He controls everything, even what I wear." She went on at length, describing how I supposedly became authoritarian after a major business project, controlling every dollar, limiting her social life. "Several times I wanted to buy gifts for our grandson," Marina sobbed, "but I was interrogated about every detail, as if I couldn't be trusted with money." Judge Whitman listened with a neutral expression. "Is there evidence of physical abuse?" she asked sharply. Marina hesitated. "Not physical, Your Honor, but mental." "Any witnesses?" the judge pressed. Marina avoided answering directly. "I always tried to protect our family's reputation." Lucas stood up, attempting to rescue the situation. "Your Honor, we are not alleging physical abuse, but invisible, systematic abuse, control, and manipulation that damaged my client's mental health." Judge Whitman nodded briefly, then turned to us. "Defense?" Evelyn Moore rose gracefully. "We categorically deny all allegations, Your Honor. With the court's permission, we will present evidence showing that this lawsuit is not a simple divorce, but a coordinated attempt to illegally strip my client's assets." Judge Whitman frowned. "Proceed." Evelyn opened her laptop and connected the audio player. "With the court's permission, we will play a recording of a conversation between the plaintiff, Mrs. Marina Cole, and her legal advisor, Mr. Lucas Hart, who also happens to be the defendant's son-in-law."
Marina and Lucas paled instantly. Lucas tried to interrupt. "Your Honor, any recording made without consent is illegal." "I'll decide admissibility," Judge Whitman cut him sharply. "Play it." The room fell silent. Lucas's voice echoed clearly. "Once he signs, half his life is ours." Then Marina's voice followed. "I'll pretend to care, but honestly, it makes me sick." Judge Whitman's expression hardened. Marina stared down at the floor. Lucas shifted repeatedly in his seat. After the recording ended, Evelyn continued. She presented bank transfer records, Lucas's signatures on manipulated financial documents, a formal statement from the bank confirming that Marina had opened a fraudulent joint account without Adrian's authorization. "And, Your Honor," Evelyn added, "we also present witnesses." Thomas Reed testified first, professionally explaining suspicious transfer patterns and unauthorized account openings. 2 former clients of Lucas followed, each stating they lost money after being deceived by Lucas using his status as a family attorney. The courtroom atmosphere shifted completely. Marina kept her head down. Lucas tried to appear calm, but was clearly unraveling. We then demonstrated that Lucas had violated attorney ethics by representing a lawsuit between his wife and his own father-in-law, a clear conflict of interest. We also presented evidence that Marina had hidden property under false names and attempted to intimidate witnesses, supported by WhatsApp messages sent by Lucas. For the first time, Judge Whitman's neutral expression cracked. She stared directly at Lucas. "Mr. Hart," she said coldly, "are you acting as an attorney or as a son-in-law? Because what I see looks more like a personal enforcer." Lucas tried to defend himself. "Your Honor, I was only helping my client obtain her rightful claim."
Lucas staggered, unable to answer coherently. His responses became inconsistent, contradicting his earlier statements. Marina finally lifted her head. Tears streamed down her cheeks, and this time I was certain they were not an act. "Your Honor," her voice trembled weakly, I was influenced." "By whom, Mrs. Cole?" Judge Eleanor Whitman asked, calmly but firmly. Marina glanced briefly at Lucas, then looked away without answering. The judge exhaled slowly. "The court will adjourn until next week for deliberation," Judge Whitman announced. "During this period, the court orders a temporary seizure of assets belonging to the plaintiff and Mr. Lucas Hart." She continued, her tone decisive. "Management rights of the primary residence are returned to the defendant. Mr. Hart's legal practice license is temporarily suspended. A formal report will be submitted to the State Bar Association of California for further disciplinary review." Lucas lowered his head, his face drained of color. Marina cried silently, not as an actress this time, but as someone facing real defeat. As I exited the courtroom, I saw Nadia standing in the corridor. She hadn't entered the courtroom. She waited outside, ready to offer moral support. Her face was calm, but her eyes glistened with tears. "Dad," she whispered as I approached, "I saw Mom." "Yes," I nodded slowly. "She's still inside. Should I talk to her?" I took Nadia's hand gently. "That's your decision, sweetheart. But remember, whatever happens between your mother and me, she is still your mother." Nadia nodded, her gaze fixed on the closed courtroom door. She took a deep breath and said quietly, "I'll see her, not because of Lucas, but because she's my mother." I smiled faintly, proud of my daughter's maturity. "You're an extraordinary woman, Nadia, far wiser than your father ever was." She smiled sadly, then walked toward the door. I chose to give them privacy. While waiting outside the courthouse, my phone rang. It was Rachel, Lucas's assistant. "Mr. Cole, I'm sorry to bother you." "What is it, Rachel?" I asked, curious why Lucas's assistant was calling me. I just wanted you to know 5 major clients have withdrawn their contracts from our firm. News about today's hearing spread quickly. The firm will shut down tomorrow." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, puzzled by her motive. There was a brief silence. "Because Mr. Hart is not a good man," she said quietly. "He deceived many people, including me, and I think you deserve to know that justice has started to move." I thanked her and ended the call, looking up at the clear California sky. For the first time in a long while, the weight on my shoulders felt lighter. The war was not over, but the first battle had been won. A few minutes later, Nadia emerged from the courthouse. Her face was wet with tears, but her steps were steady. "How did it go?" I asked gently. "She confessed to everything," she replied softly. "She said Lucas planned it all from the beginning. She was blinded by promises of luxury and a sense of importance she hadn't felt in years." "Did you forgive her?" I asked. Nadia was silent for a moment, staring into the distance. "Not yet, Dad. That takes time. But I understand her now, and maybe someday I'll forgive her." I wrapped an arm around my daughter's shoulders, and we walked away from the courthouse together. Behind us, the dark clouds that had hovered over our family slowly began to part. True revenge is not about making someone scream in pain, but allowing them to live long enough to face the ruins they built themselves. 3 months passed after that first hearing. The seasons changed, and so did our lives, in ways I never imagined. Today, I sit on the porch of my house in Santa Barbara, watching the guava tree bloom again after nearly withering. The divorce proceedings with Marina ended sooner than expected. After the evidence was exposed, Marina withdrew her lawsuit. The judge accepted the withdrawal with conditions. Investigations into alleged embezzlement and document forgery continued. For me, the divorce itself became secondary. What mattered most was clearing my name and ensuring the assets I built through decades of hard work did not fall into the wrong hands. Lucas suffered the harshest consequences. The California State Bar issued a 12-month suspension for conflict of interest and ethical violations. His law firm shut down permanently. 7 of his 10 primary clients terminated all contracts after news about the trial spread. One morning, Michael Grant sent me a short message. Lucas tried to open an online legal consultation practice, but the courtroom recordings have gone viral. I never pushed for those recordings to be spread, but the digital world has its own way of revealing truth. Legal community forums and private groups circulated screenshots of Lucas and Marina's disgraceful dialogue, destroying his professional reputation. "I never intended to ruin him," I told Evelyn Moore when we met to finalize documents. "I only wanted justice." "Sometimes, Mr. Cole," she replied wisely, "justice arrives wearing the mask of karma." Marina also faced heavy social consequences. Her name was quietly removed from elite charity circles. Former friends distanced themselves. Invitations to high-profile events stopped coming. 2 properties under her name were frozen due to ongoing criminal investigations. From Nadia, I heard Marina temporarily moved with a relative in Fresno, living under the shadow of her own disgrace. Sometimes I wondered, did she regret her choices? Was it all worth what she ended up with? I never shared this story publicly. Seeking sympathy or exposing family shame was never my way. Every morning, I still sweep my yard myself. I water the guava tree we once planted together. Simple rituals that remind me life goes on, with or without those we thought would always be there. Nadia underwent the greatest transformation. After her divorce from Lucas was finalized, she focused on building her independent psychology practice in South Los Angeles. Ironically, her personal experience gave her new insight into helping clients. "You know, Dad," she said one afternoon over lunch, "so many people experience psychological manipulation within families without realizing it." She became a guest speaker at seminars on toxic relationships and emotional manipulation. Without mentioning names, her story became a powerful lesson for many. Our relationship grew stronger, more open, more honest, deeper than ever before. Nadia often brought Leo to stay with me in Santa Barbara.
My grandson grew quickly, now 4 years old, with endless curiosity. "Grandpa, how old is this guava tree?" he asked one day as we picked ripe fruit together. "Well," I said, slightly adjusting history, "it was planted before your mom was even born." "Wow," he exclaimed innocently, "then it must be very old, like you, Grandpa." I laughed out loud. That evening, after Nadia and Leo went home, I sat on the porch listening to church bells in the distance, a sound that always brought calm amid life's storms. I thought of Marina. It had been 3 months since we last spoke. Legally, we were still husband and wife. The divorce was withdrawn, not finalized. But in reality, we lived as strangers. "How is Mom?" I asked Nadia last week. "She's okay," she answered briefly. "She joined a small spiritual group in Fresno. Seems like she's trying to start over." "Good," I said. That was all. I don't know if I've truly forgiven Marina. Forgiveness is a process, not a single decision. What I do know is that hatred only corrodes the one who carries it. So I choose to focus on what I can still be grateful for. My daughter, my grandson, a company still running strong, and health I'm grateful to have at 62. One night, I received a short email from Marina. "Adrian, I know an apology isn't enough for everything that happened, but I want you to know I regret it, not because I was caught, but because I finally realized how foolish I was chasing a mirage and abandoning a real oasis. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know." I didn't reply immediately. I spent days reflecting. After betrayal that deep, trust becomes a luxury. Eventually, I replied simply, "Thank you for telling me. I hope you find peace." There was no further communication. Sometimes I wonder, did 27 years of marriage truly end like this? Then I remember, the last few years may have been only a performance, and no matter how convincing a performance is, it is never reality. "I wasn't a perfect father," I told Nadia one day, "but I want you to know I never lied about love." She hugged me tightly. "I know, Dad, and that's what makes you extraordinary." Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Life found its new rhythm. Cole Construction Group continued to grow, even securing a new apartment complex in Irvine. One evening, sitting on my porch with a cup of warm tea, I opened my laptop. I looked at the folder containing all the evidence recordings I once collected. I played the last recording from the USB Nadia gave me. Lucas's voice rang out arrogantly. "Nadia? She's just a legal tool." After listening once more, I deleted the file. Not because I forgot, but because I was done. What use is there in keeping poison, even as a reminder? I smiled faintly and opened my personal journal, a thick, leather-bound book I write in every night before sleep. I wrote, "I once couldn't see who my enemy was. Now I know. Betrayal never comes from strangers." I stared